Welcome back, guys. Tonight, I'm going to share 3 scary stories with you. Make sure your doors are locked. Check your windows. Are you sure you're alone? So no, let's go at. My name is Nathan. This started about 8 months ago. I work from home, freelance stuff. I keep weird hours, usually up until 3 or 4 in the morning. I live alone. Small house, quiet neighborhood, nothing unusual about my life. That's important. I want you to know that before I tell you the rest, because what happened over the next 3 weeks was the most unsettling thing I have ever experienced, and it started with a phone call. First one came on a Tuesday night, 3:04 a.m., unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but I was awake anyway, so I picked up. Nobody spoke, no breathing, no static, just complete silence on the other end. I said hello twice, nothing. I hung up, figured it was a misdial, went back to work, forgot about it. Next night, 3:04 a.m., same unknown number. I answered again, same silence. This time I stayed on longer, maybe 30 seconds, nothing. I hung up and blocked the number. Night after that, 3:04 a.m., different number, same silence. This went on for a week, every single night. Always 3:04 a.m., always a different number, always the same silence on the other end. After the 7th night, I stopped answering, but they kept calling. Every night, same time. After 2 weeks, I started writing down the numbers. I don't know why, just felt like I should. On a Sunday afternoon, I sat down and looked up every single number. Most of them came back as unregistered. Burner phones probably, but 3 of them traced back to the same address. I typed the address into Google Maps. It was a cemetery, Greenwood Cemetery, 4 blocks from my house. I told myself it was a prank, kids messing around. Someone found my number online. I told myself that. But that same night, around 2 a.m., I was sitting at my desk working when something made me look up at the window. I don't know what. No sound, no movement, just something. I looked at the window. There was a man standing in my front yard, just standing there, in the dark, looking at the house. I couldn't see his face, just the shape of him. He stood there for maybe 2 minutes, then turned and walked away out on the street. I sat there for a long time after that. Didn't sleep. 3:04 a.m. The call came. I answered it. Silence. And then, for the first time, a voice, low, flat, like someone who hadn't spoken in a while. "Did you see me tonight?" I hung up immediately. I called the police the next morning, told them about the calls, the man outside, the cemetery address. They took a report, said they'd look into it, told me to call if anything else happened. Nothing happened for 3 nights. No calls, nobody outside. I started to relax. Then on the 4th night, I woke up at 2:50 a.m. Don't know why. I just opened my eyes and I was completely awake. I lay there for a moment, and then I heard it from outside my bedroom window, breathing, slow, close, like someone standing right outside the glass. My bedroom window is 6 feet off the ground. I didn't move for a long time. At exactly 3:04 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I could still hear the breathing outside the window, and the phone was ringing in my hand, both at the same time. I answered the phone. Silence. Then, "I can hear your heartbeat from out here." I called 911 immediately. Police came in 7 minutes. Nobody outside, nobody in the yard, nobody anywhere on the street, but under my bedroom window, in the flower bed, 2 footprints, fresh ones, facing the window. Police did a welfare check at the cemetery address the numbers had traced to. They called me back an hour later. The officer sounded strange on the phone. He said the address wasn't an office building or groundskeeper's house. It was a specific plot, a grave. I asked him whose grave. He was quiet for a moment. Then he read me the name. It was my grandfather's name. My grandfather had been buried at Greenwood Cemetery 3 years ago. I hadn't visited once, not once in 3 years. I don't have an explanation for that. I've tried to find one. The calls stopped after that night. Nobody has stood in my yard since, but I think about something the officer said before he hung up. He said when they checked the grave, there were fresh flowers on it. Someone had placed them recently. I hadn't put them there. My family hadn't put them there. Nobody knew who had. I visited the grave for the first time last month. Stood there for a while. I don't know what I was expecting. On the way back to my car, I checked my phone. A missed call. Unknown number. 3:04 p.m. Not a.m. this time. p.m. I called it back. It rang once. Then silence. Then a voice. Same flat tone. Same low voice. You finally came. My name is Lily. I'm 24 years old and I work as a graphic designer in Portland. And to be honest, I debated whether or not to even share this, but I feel that people need to hear it, because what happened to me could happen to anyone. Last month, I booked a weekend getaway at a remote cabin about 2 hours outside the city. I found it on Airbnb. Perfect reviews, secluded location surrounded by forest. Exactly what I needed to disconnect and recharge. The host's name was Marcus, middle-aged guy. His profile said he lived nearby and took pride in making sure guests had everything they needed. When I arrived Friday evening, Marcus was waiting for me in the driveway. Big smile, very friendly, almost too friendly. He showed me around the cabin, explained how everything worked. Then he said something that seemed nice at the time, but now makes my skin crawl. I live just a quarter-mile down the road. If you need anything at all, just call. I'll come right over. I want to make sure you feel completely safe and comfortable here. After Marcus left, I settled in. The cabin was beautiful, rustic but clean, perfect for a quiet weekend. I think a knock came around 8 o'clock. It was Marcus. He was holding a tray with a bottle of wine and some snacks. "Welcome drinks," he said cheerfully. "Thought you might want something to help you relax after your drive." Not at all. I was already feeling a bit nervous. I told him that I was going to bed early, but to be honest, I just wanted him to leave. "Of course," he said. "Well, if you change your mind, just let me know." An hour later, another knock. Marcus again, this time holding towels. "I realized I forgot to put extra towels in your bathroom. Can't have you running out." I explained that there were already plenty of towels, but he insisted on bringing them inside anyway. He spent about 5 minutes arranging them in the bathroom, taking his time, looking around. "Beautiful evening, isn't it?" he said, glancing toward the bedroom. "Perfect night for a good rest." At 10 p.m. he knocked again. "Sorry to bother you. I wanted to check if the heater was working properly. Gets cold up here at night." The cabin was warm. The heater was fine. But Marcus came in anyway and spent 10 minutes checking things. He kept finding excuses to walk through different rooms, opening closets, looking under furniture, just making sure everything's secure, he said when he saw me watching him. By the time he left, I was starting to feel uncomfortable. 3 visits in 2 hours seemed excessive. I locked the door behind him and checked all the windows, made sure everything was secure. I changed into pajamas and got into bed around 11 p.m. The cabin was quiet except for normal forest sounds, wind in the trees, distant owl hoots. I fell asleep easily, but around 3 a.m. something woke me up. A sound I couldn't immediately identify. It sounded like a phone vibrating, but it wasn't my phone. My phone was charging on the nightstand. I froze right there listening. It was definitely a phone, a buzzing sound. It was coming from right under my bed. Friends, to be honest, I was terrified. I grabbed my own phone and turned on the flashlight, slowly leaned over the edge of the bed. The light illuminated the space under the bed, and I saw him, Marcus, lying on his back, staring up at me, phone in his hand. He'd been under my bed the entire time, not just since I went to sleep. since before I even arrived at the cabin. All those visits, the welcome drinks, the extra towels, the heater check. He wasn't being helpful. He was stalling, making sure I got comfortable, making sure I went to sleep, while he waited underneath my bed.
"Hello, Lily,"
he whispered. I screamed and rolled off the bed, ran for the front door. Marcus crawled out from under the bed behind me, moving faster than I expected. I got the door unlocked and ran to my car, hands shaking as I tried to start the engine. Marcus appeared in the doorway, not running after me, just standing there, smiling, like he knew something I didn't. I floored the gas pedal and sped down the gravel road, checking my rear view mirror. Marcus wasn't following me, but as I reached the main road, I slammed on the brakes and nothing happened. The pedal had gone dead. Marcus didn't just want to watch, he wanted to trap me. I was absolutely furious with that man. My car kept rolling toward the guardrail. I yanked the steering wheel and managed to avoid going over the edge, but barely. I coasted to a stop on the shoulder and got out to check my car. Brake fluid was dripping from under the vehicle, fresh cuts in the brake lines. Marcus had sabotaged my car before I even arrived at the cabin. He'd planned everything. The friendly visits were just theater. He wanted me to feel safe while he positioned himself for whatever he was planning to do, and he'd cut my brakes to make sure I couldn't leave. I called 911 from the roadside, told them everything. Police searched the cabin, found evidence that Marcus had been living in the crawl space under the floor for weeks. Cameras, recording equipment, photos of previous female guests, all taken from underneath their beds while they slept. The detective told me something that still gives me nightmares. We found journals in his hiding space. He'd been documenting guests for over a year, learning their routines, their sleeping patterns, when they felt most vulnerable. What was he planning to do? The detective went quiet for a moment. We're still investigating, but based on what we found, you weren't meant to leave that cabin. They never found Marcus. When police arrived, he was gone, vanished into the forest. But they did find something else in his hiding space. A list of upcoming reservations. Other women who'd booked the cabin over the next few months. The police contacted all of them, canceled their stays, probably saved their lives. I testified in the investigation, helped identify evidence, did everything I could to make sure Marcus would be caught if he ever surfaced. So, yes, stay safe out there. If your host is acting extra, don't just be polite. Get out of there. Because some people aren't looking for a 5-star review. They're looking for you. Stay safe, folks. Forget those romantic movies about lighthouses, man. Last fall, I took this boring temp gig on the Oregon coast just to watch over some equipment for 2 weeks. The pay was okay, nothing crazy, and I thought it'd be easy money, but I was dead wrong. The lighthouse had been automated for years, but the Coast Guard needed someone on site for 2 weeks while they upgraded the navigation systems. All I had to do was monitor the equipment, make sure the light kept rotating, and stay in radio contact with the mainland twice a day. The lighthouse sat on a small rocky island about half a mile from shore. There was a tiny cabin attached to the base of the tower where I'd sleep and work. No internet, no cell service, just me and a radio. I thought it would be boring. 2 weeks of reading books and watching the ocean. My first night was uneventful. I did my equipment checks, radioed the Coast Guard at 6 p.m. like scheduled, had some dinner, and went to bed around 10. The second night started the same way. I was up in the lighthouse around 11 p.m. doing routine maintenance on the rotating beacon. It's loud work. The motors that turn the light make this constant grinding noise, so you can't hear much else. I was focused on checking the rotation mechanism when something made me look toward the cabin below. There was a face in the window, a human face pressed against the glass, looking up at me in the lighthouse, but it wasn't a normal face. It was wearing some kind of mask, white, featureless, like a blank Halloween mask, with just dark holes where the eyes should be. I'm telling you guys, honestly, for a moment there, my heart completely forgot to beat. My hands and legs were trembling so violently that I nearly dropped my flashlight. In a panic, I cast the beam of the flashlight down onto the cabin window. The face was gone. I told myself that it must have been my imagination. Then I heard something that made my blood freeze. Knocking. Someone was knocking on the cabin door. Slow, deliberate knocks. I was 50 feet above them in the lighthouse tower, but I could hear it clearly during the brief moments when the beacon motor cycled quiet. I climbed down from the lighthouse as fast as I could and grabbed the radio. Coast Guard, this is Beacon Point Lighthouse. I have an intruder on the island. Request immediate assistance. I tried again. More static. The radio had been working perfectly earlier. The knocking stopped. I looked out the cabin window toward the rocky shoreline. No boat, no way for someone to have reached the island. The tide was high, and the rocks were completely surrounded by deep water. I grabbed a kitchen knife and slowly opened the cabin door. No one there, but in the soft dirt in front of the door, there were footprints, fresh boot prints, leading from the door to the edge of the cliff. I followed them with my flashlight. The prints went right to the cliff edge and stopped, like someone had walked straight off the rocks into 40 feet of black ocean. And then I heard a whisper. My name, Ryan. Crystal clear, man. My blood literally froze. There was no one else in this little lighthouse besides me, and I was absolutely terrified. Someone called my name from somewhere in the darkness, but it wasn't coming from the water below. It was coming from behind me. I spun around. Nothing there. Just the lighthouse beam sweeping across the empty island every 12 seconds. I ran back into the cabin and locked the door. Then I realized something that terrified me. I'd never told anyone my name. The Coast Guard paperwork had my last name, but they'd always called me by my surname. The job assignment just said A. Patterson. How did someone on this island know my first name? I barricaded the door with a chair and sat on my bed with a knife, waiting for sunrise. Around 1 a.m., I heard footsteps. Slow, heavy footsteps walking around the outside of the cabin, circling the building. They'd walk around the cabin once, stop for about 5 minutes, then start again. Every time they stopped, I'd hear my name whispered from a different location. Ryan, from the north side. 5 minutes later, Ryan, from the east side. 5 minutes later, Ryan, from right outside my bedroom window. This went on for 3 hours. Someone was methodically walking around my cabin, learning the layout, testing my fear levels. But the worst part was when I looked out the window during one of the stops. The masked face was there again, right at the window, but this time I could see more details. It wasn't a store-bought mask. It looked homemade, crude, like someone had carved it from wood or molded it from clay. And the eye holes weren't empty. There were real eyes behind them, human eyes, staring directly at me. The person raised one hand and pressed it against the glass. Their palm was covered in what looked like mud or dried blood. They stood there for maybe 10 seconds, hand pressed to my window, eyes locked on mine. Then they stepped backward into the darkness and disappeared. I didn't sleep that night. At first light, I went outside to investigate. The handprint was still on my window, but when I looked closer, I realized it wasn't mud or blood. It was ash, like someone had dipped their hand in fireplace ashes and pressed it to the glass. That's when I found the fire pit. About 100 yards from the cabin, hidden behind some rocks, someone had built a small fire. It was still warm, fresh ash scattered around it. Next to the fire pit was a makeshift shelter, tarps stretched between rocks, a sleeping bag, canned food, and a wooden box. Friends. I opened that box and I swear I felt like I was going to vomit. Inside that box were pictures of me. dozens of them. Pictures of me sleeping, cooking, working at the lighthouse, as if someone had been stalking me for a very long time. At the bottom of the box was a notebook, pages and pages of handwritten notes about my daily routine, what time I woke up, what I ate for breakfast, when I did my radio checks, and on the last page, a message written in the same hand. Day 3. Subject shows fear response. Ready for direct contact. Tonight we meet face to face. I didn't wait for tonight. I grabbed my emergency flare gun and fired 3 distress signals into the sky. A Coast Guard boat arrived 4 hours later. They searched the entire island, found the camp, the photographs, the notebook, but whoever had been watching me was gone. The Coast Guard said it was probably someone with a small kayak or inflatable boat who'd been camping illegally on the island. They'd done a background check on all the lighthouse keepers who'd worked there in the past year. 3 of them had reported similar incidents, feeling watched, finding evidence someone had been on the island. 1 keeper quit after 2 days, claiming someone was studying him. But here's what haunts me. When they processed the photographs as evidence, they noticed something in the background of 1 picture. In a photo taken of me sleeping, you could see the cabin wall behind my bed. Carved into the wood, in letters about 6 inches tall, was a message I'd never noticed. Keeper number 7. The others couldn't stay. Can you? 7 lighthouse keepers. Someone had been terrorizing people on that island for years, learning their habits, driving them away, or worse. I'm back in the city now, but truth be told, I still can't sleep without the lights on. Whenever someone knocks at my door, I freeze up completely, because once someone stares at you like that, you never truly feel alone again. So, thanks for making it this far, friends. Stay safe. And friends, if you enjoyed these stories, please be sure to let me know in the comments.